You can start the recording, please.
Started, sir.
Uh, am I audible? I think yes.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Very good morning, dear participants. On behalf of Triple IT Quota and this FDP funded by Atal AICT and all dear participants, we welcome Dr. Ramanpreet Singh to deliver a session in this workshop. Let me briefly introduce Dr. Ramanpreet Singh. Is working as an assistant professor in Manipal University, Jaipur. He has more than 10 years of teaching experience and 2 years of industrial experience. He is actively working in the field of kinematics synthesis. He is more interested in dynamics and control of mechanism, dynamic and balancing of multi-body systems, such as closed-loop mechanism and manipulators. Current activities include studies, design and development of agricultural machinery, human biomechanics, prosthetics and orthotics, rehabilitation robotics. He has published more than 20 international repute peer-reviewed journal and conferences. He is a reviewer for many reputed journals, and he was awarded Outstanding Reviewer Award by Mechanism and Machine Theory Journal in 2018 also. Currently, he is supervising MTech and PhD students in the area of dynamics and control of mechanism and rehabilitation robotics, also biomechanics also. So his research area is very closely related to our FDP, and we are very thankful to Dr. Ramanpreet that he has accepted our request to deliver talk. With these words, I request Dr. Ramanpreet Singh to please take over.
Good morning, everyone. I think I am audible to you all. Please
Yes,
confirm.
sir. Yes, sir.
Okay, so thank you, Dr. Amit, for inviting me to this workshop for delivering a lecture on wearable robotics. So before I begin my lecture, I want to share my screen so that everyone knows what I'm going to deliver in this session. So after that, I'll start my lecture. Can you please confirm is my screen is visible to you all? Is my screen visible to everyone?
Once, yes, sir. It is visible.
Okay. So I think that we are in the fifth day of the wearable robotics design, sensing and support workshop at Triple IT Kota. And if I'm not wrong, this is session number 13. And before I begin my lecture or before I begin this presentation, I just wanted to share a quote with you guys because I was reading a book yesterday and I found the quote very touching. So I thought, why not to share with everyone? It may be useful for you. It may be helpful for you. So the quote is like, tragedy of life is not death, but what we let die inside of us while we live. So I found this quote very touching. So I thought of sharing with you guys. Okay, so keeping all these apart, I think I should begin now with my presentation. So, as Dr. Amit has clearly introduced my area of interest and everything, so you might be knowing that I'll be going to talk for the next 2 hours or so. So I try to maintain the level of this presentation to elementary, and maybe we'll talk about some intermediate and advanced level also, but we'll begin with the elementary level. And I hope that everyone will be in sync with me during this presentation. And if you guys face any difficulty while I am delivering the talk, you are free to intermediate in between or intervene in between. Okay, so let's begin this presentation. So I just want to make clear that do not disrupt with the idea that there are two figures in this screen, as you can see, and both are related to the hand and finger exoskeletons. So these are my recent works which I have pasted here. But in this presentation, what I'll be talking, that will be more related to the lower limb rehabilitation mechanisms and devices. Okay, so and little bit I'll touch upon the finger and hand exoskeleton, because these are some of the recent works which some of my students have done and myself have done. So has done. So I'll try to touch upon every aspect related to the mechanism and its synthesis and design. Okay, so in this presentation, I'll be covering the introduction, and in that introduction, I'll try to take up the theory behind the lower limb rehabilitation. And when I say lower limb rehabilitation, in lower limb we have many joints like knee joint, foot joint, and we consider the pelvis and everything in the lower limb. But my major area, or my focus of interest during introduction and during this presentation, will be entirely on the knee joint. So when I say that, just a second, there is some issue, I think. Yeah. So when I say introduction, my focus will be on knee. Then slowly and steadily, when we move forward, if I say that my focus will be entirely on knee, that will be the injustice to the participants, because we are going to study design also. So we'll try to see the functioning of knee, and based on that functioning, we'll also try to see the linkage synthesis methods. Okay, so we'll try to see the design methodology behind any of the, and once you have understood the fundamentals and the technology behind it, then you can apply this format or this pattern on any of the area of your choice, and you are good to go. Then once we are done with the introduction, we'll also talk about the background. So since this is more of kind of a rehabilitation device workshop, if I'm not wrong, wearable robotics, so I'll try to introduce the different types of the rehabilitation devices which are available. So I'll talk about the types, and in some cases I'll also talk about the limitations and the advantages and disadvantages, something like that I'll be discussing. And again, when I'm saying that I'll be talking about the rehabilitation devices, I am also considering that you by default consider that I'll be discussing about the linkage types, linkage synthesis methodologies, everything I'll be covering in background also. Once we are done with the introduction and background, and yeah, I want to make one thing very sure. I have not prepared this presentation up for 2 hours. I do not know what how much time I'll take. I may take 1 hour 45 minutes, and the presentation may take more than 2 hours. So but I'll try to stick to the time, and I'll try to wind up the entire thing by 2 hours or before that. Okay, so once we are done with the introduction and the background, then we'll try to see the fundamentals of the graphical synthesis. So this is the part which I think you might be interested in, since I said in the initial part or the initial slide that I'll be talking from elementary level, and I'll slowly and steadily bring it to the advanced level. So this is the part which I'm saying that this is your elementary level. So this is the part from where we'll be starting from scratch. So I'll tell you how to do the synthesis of mechanisms using graphical approach. Once we are done with this, here we'll be studying two methods: 2-point synthesis and 3-point synthesis. We'll not be touching upon 4-point synthesis, as if we touch upon 4-point synthesis, we have to study the Burmeister curves and all, and then we have to do the analysis in something like that. So we will be keeping it simple since it is elementary level. So we'll be touching upon 2 and 3 precision points. Then once we are done with the graphical synthesis, the next approach is the analytical synthesis. We'll try to see the mathematical models, what is the math behind the models, and later on we'll try to combine it with the optimization. So because when I say the that I'll be doing the analytical synthesis, that means I refrain myself up to several or the finite number of precision points. But if my number of precision points are more than 9, more than 11 in certain cases, or in some cases, we have to go for optimal synthesis method. So, and that is very helpful for design. And even I have used this method in my research. So when we do the synthesis, what happens? Sometimes we encounter defects. So sometimes the behavior of the mechanism is unpredictable. So in order to avoid such situations, we do the defect rectification while doing the synthesis. And so that part is known as rectification. So in defect rectification, there are n number of methods, but I won't be covering all those methods. I'll just brief you about defect rectification, and I'll talk more about the simplest methodology which I have developed and which I have used in order to rectify the defects. So when I'm saying that I'll keep it simple, I just remember a quote, or I just remember one thing which my mentor used to say. So he always says that if you want to impress someone, make it complex. So here I'm not going to impress you guys. So, and he says that if you want to help someone, keep it simple. So I'm not going to make things complex for you. I'll try to make everything very simple. Okay. So once we are done with defect rectification, once we have understood the all the synthesis methodologies, then we are good to go, and we can develop our own synthesis technologies or methodologies and the formats. Okay. So this is the method which I have proposed for the linkage synthesis, and you may find in this in two of my research papers. You can just go through it. So I'll again, based on time, these two topics are, I think, if I get time, I'll try to touch upon these two topics, else we'll stop here. Okay. So I think now I have given you the introduction of what we are going to study in the coming 2 hours, and we'll begin with the introduction. So when I say introduction, since our work or this presentation in this lecture is limited to the wearable robotics design of wearable robotics. So when I say that my major work is related to lower limb, and that too in knee, so it is very important to understand the biomechanics of the knee joint. So comprehension of biomechanics is the utmost important thing that you should be doing. And when I say the biomechanics of the knee joint, then you must be very clear that in which frame you are, or in which plane you are working, So there are three planes. Motion can happen in sagittal plane, transverse plane, and frontal plane. So when I say sagittal plane, it is the plane that divides the human body, or anything. Suppose you have any body. So any body, if that plane divides the body into right and left parts, left and right halves, you can say that plane which is dividing the body into right and left halves is a sagittal plane. So any motion happening in that plane will be called as sagittal plane motion. So my work is restricted to flexion extension motion, flexion extension motion. Okay, so later on in the coming slides, I'll tell you what is flexion extension motion. I have not considered internal and external rotation of knee and abduction and adduction motions. That too happens in the frontal and transfer plane. So I have not considered those motions. Okay, so my work is limited to this. So I'll be talking about that only. So, and the maximum and the significant range of motion happens in sagittal plane. So that's why this is the reason of choosing sagittal plane. And if we talk about the transverse plane, it is that plane that divides the body into the upper and the lower halves, or the upper part and the lower part. And the frontal plane is the thing which divides the body into the front and back. So I hope that I am very clear with the plane description. So this work is limited. What this presentation is basically limited to the sagittal plane. So, and these are the three planes, as you can see. This is the sagittal plane. So any motion happening in this plane, that is your sagittal plane motion. Any plane happening in this plane, that this will be your transverse plane. And any motion happening in this plane, this motion will be your frontal plane motion. Okay. So I hope that motion in three planes is clear, very much clear. And then I'll show you what kind of motion I was talking about earlier. So suppose this is some wearable device, and we want to know, and we want to just visualize what kind of motion is known as flexion extension motion. So I'll just play an animation for you so that it will give you a good idea. So when this is happening, as you can see, this is flexion and this is extension. When it is moving in this direction, it is flexion, and when it is coming back, it is extension. So the entire work will be focused on whether I'll show you these slides related to the lower limb, or whether I'll show you these slides related to what I was saying, the finger exoskeleton, whatever body part we are considering, the motion will be limited to sagittal plane only. Motion will be limited to sagittal plane, sagittal plane only. Okay. So knee joint allows wide range of motion for flexion and extension, and this range of motion is pretty significant. That's why I chose this. Then it is also important that now it is worth understanding the functioning of knee joint in sagittal plane, but because we have now understood that what kind of motion is known as flexion and extension, we should also know how the knee behaves and what is the function of the knee when it is working in and when it is moving in sagittal plane. It is equally important. So the key motions in the sagittal plane are rolling and gliding. So, and these two motions happen simultaneously. So it is a simultaneous motion. So suppose if you want to mimic the knee joint motion, you should keep in mind that the knee joint motion is a complex motion, and the complex motion is the motion where two types of motions are happening simultaneously. One is translation and other one is sliding. So when these two motions in happens anywhere, that kind of motion is known as complex motion. And if you want to mimic it, uh, I'm not very sure about knee, because I think it is perfectly created, and whosoever is trying to mimic that motion, uh, I don't think that we guys will be able to perfectly mimic that behavior, because many things are there and it has created by Almighty God, and we cannot mimic it precisely. We try to copy it, but we cannot try to copy it precisely. But yeah, we also tried it here, and you guys again also give it a try. So the two types of the motion which we are considering here are rolling and gliding, and we know that there is a mechanism. I'll just draw that mechanism over here. So this is a mechanism which we call, that mechanism is a 4 bar. It has 4 bars. So this is the ground link one, this is second link, this is third link, and this is fourth link. So this is a 4 bar, and when we apply 4 bar anywhere and we give motion to any one of the link, all these other links will have a simultaneous relative motion. So what will happen, it will give you a motion which is the complex motion. That means it gives you a motion which is the combination of rolling and sliding. So that is the one motivation of selecting the 4 bar mechanism for getting this rolling and gliding motion. And this image you can you can find in one of my research papers, and it is an open access, so you can uh, go to Journal of Orthopedic Translation, Journal of Orthopedic Translation, Elsevier. So you can just go and check that paper. The detailed description of the functioning of knee joint is placed there, and I have put everything there. So here what happens, rolling and sliding is happening simultaneously. And if we talk about the kinematics now, because our main focus will be to mimic what we are trying to mimic, we are trying to mimic the kinematics. So in kinematics these motions are involved, and the kinematics of knee joint can only be achieved through no, if I say can only be achieved through cross 4 bar linkage, it will be wrong. It can be achieved through cross 4 bar linkage, because the structure of the knee joint has the ligaments, anterior cruciate ligament and the posterior cruciate ligament. What happens? They form a similar structure to a cross 4 bar linkage. So in order to get the motion similar to a motion of a knee joint, we can use a single degree of freedom mechanism that can generate rolling and sliding motion simultaneously. So sorry. So here 4 bar allows you the combination of rotation and translation, and that too in the sagittal plane. So I think this is the best choice. So when you begin designing a mechanism, I recommend that you should start with a 4 bar. Though you can achieve the same motion with the 6 bar also, but the simplest method of designing, or the simplest you can see the implementation of synthesis methodology, is for the 4 bar. So you can give your try starting with the 4 bar mechanism. Then I think the brief introduction we are done with, and now we'll talk about the synthesis. When I say the linkage synthesis, so it involves several methods like graphical synthesis, analytical synthesis, and optimal synthesis. When I say graphical synthesis, that means a picture should come to your mind that everything will be related to graphs, or we will be doing graphics. Okay, so that nowadays there are many softwares you can use. I generally use GeoGebra. GeoGebra you can use for graphical synthesis. Nowadays you can also use AutoCAD and Creo and any other sketching software you can use to do the graphical synthesis. And uh, now the image I have just pasted here just to give you a visualization that how to do the graphical analysis. We'll be learning it step by step, so don't worry about what I have pasted here. I'll be explaining each and everything which I have done. Okay, so when I talk about the graphical synthesis, that means everything is related to the graphics or the drawing. So the accuracy of it will have some limitations, because what will happen when you are drawing in your, suppose you have taken a graph paper and you are trying to draw on that graph paper, what will happen, definitely you will encounter some errors. And when you will encounter any error in any of these steps, what will happen, that will further amplify, and ultimately you will end up getting a bigger error. So though this method is straightforward and quick, however it has limitations. So earlier, when you do not have the softwares and other things, you can use it is recommended to use this methodology of synthesis. However, now you can go for different methods. And one more limitation is that when you are doing the graphical synthesis, what happens, you have to give many iterations till you get the final solution. So in order to get a feasible and a final solution, you should have to do n number of trials, because it is really a coincidence that you have given a single try and you got the answer. So that will be a mere or coincidence. So that means whenever you are doing the graphical synthesis, this process you have to repeat several times until you get the desirable results. So this is the limitation of this method. However, I still like this method very much, because when my main aim is to do the analytical synthesis, we have to make some assumptions that we'll be seeing and learning in the subsequent slides. But the one thing which is very important to note here is, I have made a statement that when we are doing analytical synthesis, we have to assume some variables. So that assumptions cannot happen randomly, right? Because we are human beings and we are not that much capable of guessing that whatever you are guessing, you will get, your guess is absolutely correct. So what is the probability that whatever you are guessing, that is correct? The probability is very less, because we have to search from a space which is an infinite region. From that infinite region space, we have to search for a solution that is absolutely correct. So the probability of getting that absolute solution or that correct solution is very less. So what happens, what methodology I follow is, I begin my synthesis with graphical synthesis method. And once I find some solution, I save that solution. I save the variable values. Now what are those variable values and everything, I'll be discussing, no need to worry about that. So I'm just giving you a brief introduction of what we are going to cover up in this slide, in this presentation. So in analytical synthesis, we need some variables, and we begin with graphical synthesis. We get the solution. Those solution may not be correct or may be correct, but what we do save some of the variables that we may require. So save the variables. Save the variables. So when you save the variables, then you can go to analytical synthesis method. So suppose this is some variable at this location. Now you can make a region, and around that region you can make your guesswork. You can try some different variables, and you can apply the analytical synthesis methodology to get the solution. And that solution, there is a good probability that you will get a good solution and a feasible solution, and which is comparable to your desired result. Mm. So I hope till now whatever I have discussed, you guys are in sync with me. It is very difficult nowadays, everything is online. So it is very difficult when I'm speaking and I'm not getting any response. So please just let me know, am I clearly audible and you guys are listening? Am I audible?
Yes,
Okay.
sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. Okay. So shall we proceed? And I'm going at right pace, right? You do not want me to slow down my pace, right? You want me to speak in the at the correct pace, right?
Yes, sir, this is perfect.
Okay. Okay, so once we are done with the graphical synthesis, then we move on to the analytical synthesis. Analytical synthesis, once we are done with it, we go to the optimal synthesis. Okay, so we started with the graphical synthesis and we found that there are some limitations. So we have to move on to the analytical synthesis method. And in analytical synthesis, what happens? We need some variables. So those variables we can extract from the graphical synthesis method. In some cases, now this method is my methodology I follow. You are not bound to follow this. Okay, so you can make your guesswork happen, or you can do apply some optimization algorithm, and that will work for you. Okay, so I follow this, and sometimes I also combine optimization algorithm in order to get to do my guesswork done. Then in analytical synthesis, I'll give you a brief introduction here, and later on we'll try to extract the as much information as we can. So in analytical synthesis, what happens? It works in the form of dyads. So it works in the form of dyad. Now dyad is a vector pair. So here we have a one body, and here we have two second body. So this is the first body which we are denoting by W, and this is second body which we are denoting by Z. So by dyad, I mean to say that we have, suppose we have a 4-bar like this. Suppose this is the point, and this is the trajectory which we want to trace. Suppose this is the trajectory which we want to trace. We want a mechanism that can trace this red valley trajectory. Okay, this trajectory. We want a mechanism that can trace this trajectory. And my proposition is that we can use a 4-bar mechanism, and it can generate a trajectory which is exactly similar to it, and which may overlap with the trajectory which is desired. So suppose this is my desired trajectory. Suppose this is my desired trajectory. Now I want a mechanism that can generate a trajectory which can overlap this. So this is the point of interest. Now what I'll do, I'll try to synthesize a dyad. So for synthesizing a dyad, I'll make use of vector pairs. So these are two vector pairs, W and Z, and this is my left dyad. Similarly, what I'll do, I'll make use of another vector pair, or the dyad, and that will be my right dyad. So I'll have to make use of two dyads simultaneously. So what we will we'll do the synthesis for the left dyad followed by the synthesis of right dyad. The methodology is going to same. So we are going to see how to synthesize it, what are the basic terminologies, and what are the basic things that are involved in here, because the methodology will see in the subsequent slides. So this is a vector pair. In synthesis, what happens, here we have 3 points. This is P3, this is P2, and this is P1, and I want my dyad to trace these 3 points, P1, P2, and P3, and I am not interested what trajectory it is going to take in order to reach to these 3 points. These 3 points are known as precision points. These are precision points, and I am not interested what trajectory is being followed in between these 3 points. My major interest will be entirely that my dyad is tracking these 3 points, and that too in a order. So if suppose if so happens that the dyad has moved from here, and it has reached here, and then it has reached here. So that means what order it has followed? 1, 2, and 3. If so happens, in that case, the synthesis which I have performed is defected, and it is defected by order. So there is an order defect, because my sequence should be 1, 2, and then 3. So if that sequence is not followed, we'll say that this mechanism is defected and it is suffering with order defect. So we need to rectify it. Okay, so this is one of the defect which I have covered earlier. Okay, so now don't worry about such notations and everything, because we'll be covering in the subsequent slides. The information I wanted to give it to you guys here, I have already given. So don't worry, now we'll be seeing it in elaboration in later slides. Now when I say I'm doing analytical synthesis, it also has some limitations. So the number of design precision points here cannot be more than 5. And suppose if you are using some different numerical method or something like that, then the number of precision points can go up to 9. However, as you are increasing the number of precision points, what is happening? You are ultimately increasing your complexity. Your complexity will definitely increase. So if you are increasing the number of precision points, you are definitely making things complex for you. So try to make things simple, not complex. Then the same thing, if you are going for function generation, obviously I am not discussing. There are three types of synthesis. I am not discussing here. I'm just telling you that path generation, motion generation, and function generation. In this presentation, I'll talk only about path generation and motion generation. And wherever I'll talk about path and motion, I'll give you the hint. Function generation will not be considering. Okay. So the synthesis when you are doing, you are limited to finite number of precision points. That could be 9 and that could be 11. And if you want to do the synthesis with larger number of precision points, in that case you are ultimately making things complex. So instead of applying analytical synthesis methodology, the best choice is to go for optimal synthesis methodology. So this gives you a break to use or select any number of precision points you can. So as one of my research work, in one of my research work, I have considered 14 precision points. So here we have liberty to play around with things as per our need. Okay. So now will begin with the optimal synthesis methodology. Now, when we are saying optimal synthesis, we can combine it with graphical, analytical, or anything. But when we are doing optimal synthesis, we should have a mathematical model ready with us. So now you guys might be guessing, might be thinking that how it is possible to combine optimal with graphical. Again, when you are doing graphical, in that case, you have to play around with the math which is behind it. So when suppose there is a rigid body here, and it is moving from here to here, then in that case you need to find a pole around which the rotation is happening, and you need to create a math behind it. You need to create the mathematical model, and then you have to create an objective, and then you can minimize or maximize your objective to get things done. So here I'm taking a very simple example. Suppose this is the trajectory, and this is the closed curve loop, a closed curve, and on this closed curve we have these many precision points, and we need to trace all these precision points with some accuracy. And I am so since there are the number of precision points are more than 9 and 11, so what we'll do, we'll go for optimal synthesis method. So when I'm saying optimal synthesis method, so I have categorized it into two parts. The first category is local optimization, and the second category is global optimization. And when I say global, global can be metaphor-less or metaphor-based. So this is my classification, though in literature or in other research papers, you may find different kinds of classifications, but this is the classification which I am following, and perhaps I think I will not deviate from it. So this is the classification which I like, and I think this is the correct one. And you are not bound to follow this. You can make use of any classification of your choice, but I like this one. Okay, so optimal synthesis comes in two ways. The one is the local optimization algorithm. So when you are applying local optimization algorithm, in that case you have to start with some initial guess solution. So when you are starting from some guess solution, that means you will finally end up with a single solution, and whenever you repeat that, you will finally end up with the same solution again and again. You do it for 100 times, 100 times you'll get the same solution. So that means you have a limitation, that every time you are getting a same solution, that means the research space, the workspace of that variable has not been exploited. So I really find that some lacking of exploitation is there in local optimization algorithm. So due to that, what happens, every research area has not been explored as well as exploited. Both things are, I don't think, are proper here. So in that case, you can always go for nature inspired algorithm. So when I'm saying nature inspired, that comes in nature metaphor based. So it is nature inspired also. So VIRED. Okay. So instead of using the local optimization algorithms, you can always choose global optimization algorithms. And the another limitation of the local optimization algorithm is that these are basically they involves the solution of gradients and Hessians. So when you are implementing it, so sometimes you entrap in local optima also. This is another issue. So and there is also a good probability that you may be entrapping in the local optima, and there is a non-zero probability of getting you can say a global optima. So in that case, it is always preferred to go with the global optimization algorithm. Now you can choose it as per your need. You can go with the metaphor less or metaphor based. So you can have a look at my, since this is not the area of the I mean, this is not the part of this presentation. So if you want to see some presentations, you can have a look at my this paper STLPSO, where I have given all the classifications. And recently I have proposed an algorithm that is metaphorless. Name is BWP, best worst play algorithm. So you can make use of such algorithms for doing your analysis. And this algorithm is the combination of TLBO and PSO. So when I say that we are not happy with the local optimization algorithms, that in that case we have a choice to go for the global optimization algorithms. So when I'm saying global, in global we have metaphor based. So these days people are only working in metaphor based algorithms. That means nature inspired, swarm intelligence, and physics based algorithms. So there are many algorithms. You might have heard of some algorithms like GWO, beat or GA, genetic algorithm. So these, and PSO, particle swarm optimization algorithm. So these algorithms are I mean, now these are well established in old algorithms. Now there are many other algorithms which are built. So you can make use of such algorithms, or simply you can go and check the metaphor less algorithms. So there are three algorithms which I like the most. One is TLBO, which comes under metaphor based, and in metaphor less, one is BWP, which I myself have proposed, and RAW 1, RAW 2, and RAW 3. So you can make use of such algorithms. So these are relatively simpler to implement, very simple to implement, and this is also very simpler to implement, and we do not require any uh, gradients and Hessians. So I think much has been said about the optimal synthesis. We'll also try to see this topic in the last part of this presentation if we'll get time. Then nature inspired are most preferred, as we have already discussed. So now the other modification that we can do in nature inspired is that we can make it multi-objective. Yeah, you can make multi-objective in local optimization as well. But in order to reduce your computational effort, you can play around with these algorithms. These are very handy. So here we have tried to divide it into two parts. So here the number of precision points are divided into two parts. So this is the rectilinear segment, which we can consider to be our first objective, and this we can consider to be a third objective. Likewise, here we have three objectives. Now it is our choice whether we go in stages as per our requirement, or we can make it multi-objective, and when in that case we can do Pareto analysis and all. Now we'll try to look upon the background. So here we'll be discussing about the different rehabilitation devices. So as per my knowledge, we can categorize the rehabilitation devices into these many types. So first one is the treadmill based exoskeletons. As the name says, that it is based on treadmill. So those devices where we make use of treadmill are considered to be the treadmill based devices. So there is one limitation, that we have to apply use a body weight support system also in treadmill based devices. So I'll just give you an example. So these are the uh, some of the treadmill based exoskeletons or devices which I have found. So first one is the robotic orthosis of University of Auckland. So here you can see that our main focus will be on knee. So see what kind of joint is here, what kind of joint is here, what kind of joint is here. So when we look upon the treadmill based devices and the exoskeletons, you may find that the people are using single axis. People are using single axis joint for knee joint. कहाँ गया ये? एक second, just a minute. हाँ ये रहा. Okay, so single axis. So people are using single axis revolute joint. Revolute joint. So do you really feel that if we use single axis revolute joint on knee, will it serve our purpose? I don't think so, because I think that we have seen in the functioning of knee that we have to cover up two motions. One is translation and the other one is sliding. So we have to mimic two motions simultaneously. So if we are applying a revolute joint, we are covering only one motion, that is rotation around your some of the axis, one of the axis. So in such case, it is not a good choice if we go with the motors only or the revolute joints only. So what is the best choice? Best choice is you can replace this with a 4 bar or 6 bar or any other joint that can give you a complex motion, rotation and gliding motion simultaneously. So these are some of the exoskeletons which I found. The other one is the lopes, lower extremity powered exoskeleton driven gait orthosis, and these are not the only ones. So there are many other exoskeletons which I have not pasted here, and later on I'll show you what kind of device I developed, and I worked in that area, supporting or assistive device, or wearable robot, you can say. So now these can be further classified down to the active exoskeletons or the passive exoskeletons. So which are powered are active and which are not powered are passive. So my work was entirely in the area of passive exoskeletons because my work is mostly related to mechanisms. But in the title slide, you might have seen that in a one finger exoskeleton, we have applied a motor and it is working. So now we are slowly and steadily moving and we are applying control and we are moving from passive to active. Some of my students are doing work in that area. So now let's see what are the advantages and disadvantages. So as you can see here that it involves multi-degree of freedom. So the entire exoskeleton involves multi-degree of freedom that may hamper your productivity because you are going to design it and it is making things complex for you. So we have to keep the degree of freedoms which we are comfortable playing around with. And then we saw that they use single axis revolute knee joint, but which allows only rotational motion, but we have to consider sliding motion as well. So in that case, we have to move on from a single axis revolute joint to a new joint that covers both these rotations and sliding motions. Then there are several other mechanisms like UCI gate mechanism, NJIT gate rehabilitation system. They have 1 degree of freedom and 6 and 4 bar linkages. However, what happened is if they have applied a linkage mechanism, they have applied it for the entire lower limb. They have not only covered the knee joint, however, they have covered the entire lower limb. So these are the things which I found out, and these are to be updated. Now you can again explore this area and you may find several other things also which I have not found. Now the other category or the other thing limitation is that these, as you can see from these pictures only, that these devices are really bulky and it is not comfortable for a normal human being to, or you can say not wealthy human beings cannot buy them because these are also expensive, and you have to go to the hospitals if you want to access them. And the second category is mobile overground based exoskeletons. As the word itself says here that it is mobile, so it is going to move. So some ambulation is going to be there, and it is overground means on the ground your exoskeleton is going to move along with you. So who is going to move it? So the person or the patient who is going to use or access that exoskeleton is going to move that exoskeleton on the ground. So such kind of exoskeletons are covered under this category, mobile overground based exoskeletons. So in such cases they do not require body weight support system because you are already carrying an exoskeleton, so that is supporting you. So there is no need for body weight support system. extensive body weight support system. So these are some of the images of this is your expose developed by Sogang University, and this is a relatively new exoskeleton. And one more picture I have not pasted here. The paper is still under review. We have also prepared one exoskeleton, that is Kester Walker Gait Trainer. I tell you that name, and let's hope for the best. We have already given a proposition. Let's see what finally the results come. So in these exoskeletons also you may find that here people have applied the linkage. So this is a linkage, and on this or near to this foot they have applied a forward. This is for the actuation. Okay, and this is also one link here, and this is one link here. So there is a link. So it is a basically a linkage mechanism that is taking care of a person who is walking along with that, or the person is carrying that support system, or you can say the exoskeleton along with him. So in we have made some modification in that, and we have designed another Kester Walker system with six bar, and we have proposed it. Let's see. So there are also some limitations here. People again are using, as you can see, single axis revolute joint between the for articulation between the thigh and the legs segment, and some of the exoskeletons are using linkage mechanism. However, they are for actuation, and that too for the entire lower limb, not at the knee. So this is not for the knee. This area is still free. Okay, and so when you are designing this, you should have some trajectory. Now, to get the trajectory on for what trajectory you are planning to design, that is very important. Okay, so the trajectory is very important, and I have found that people are using teardrop trajectory, which is of like, I mean, यहाँ पे होगा शायद, I'll just check. Just a second. Yeah. यहाँ पे नहीं है, ये बना देता हूँ मैं. Okay, so trajectory which is something like this is a teardrop trajectory, which is just like a teardrop. So so this trajectory has a limitation that it is obtained while considering hip joint to be stationary. So it is like a person with a fixed hip joint, or a person is stationary and only legs are making the move on the treadmill. So the trajectory that your foot joint is going to generate is similar to this type of tear drop trajectory. So people can use this kind of teardrop trajectory to synthesize any mechanism, and later on they can check it. However, I found that instead of going with the teardrop trajectory, we can use the natural trajectory of walking and synthesize the mechanism, and we can make a stick diagram just to verify whether a person is capable of walking with the mechanism designed on the natural trajectory or not. So I designed the linkage based on the gait trajectories. Okay, so any trajectory you can take, it is up to you. So but the conventional method is the teardrop trajectory, which we can make use of. Now the other exoskeleton category is the portable exoskeleton. So in portable, as the word itself says, that it is portable. So now you are good to go. Take it to your home. Any person or any patient now can carry it to home and make use of it. So again, they are also, as you can see, that they are also using the same single axis knee joint. So everywhere you may find that everybody is using single axis revolute knee joint, and some people are also applying it. But however, in robots they have applied. But for normal human beings and for variable robots, variable orthotic devices and assistive and supportive devices, people have not used that. Now they are using. Okay, so in old papers they are not. I have not found any. Now you may find that people are also applying mechanisms. So they have applied a mechanism here. So it is observed that a revolute joint is used to articulate. So this is the revolute joint which is used to articulate the thigh segment and the leg segment. But it is equally important to understand the role of femur and tibia, because we need to check how the rotation is happening and what trajectory your knee joint is generating, and based on that trajectory you need to synthesize a mechanism for that knee joint. So the exoskeletons reported in this section have multi degrees of freedom. However, only PGO, this is your powered gait orthosis, which is PGO, is found to have a single degree of freedom for actuating hip and knee joints simultaneously. So it is a single degree of freedom mechanism which is simultaneously actuating two joints. So this kind of mechanism can be used, and we can again modify such mechanism as per our need. And as now we have understood that linkage mechanisms play a vital role in the actuation of the mechanism, and now we can play around with the gate speed, step length, and anything you want when you are applying the linkage mechanisms. So it is always better to use a mechanism instead of simply creating a device for generating actuation. You can always use mechanism and then combine it with the actuation or whatever motor or whatever you want to apply, or the controller you want to apply. So the first step is to create a mechanism and then apply controller and actuation and everything. Last is supporting or the active assistive devices. So here you can see now in assistive devices also people are using these gears which gives you the motion. So again, that is also not sufficient. I don't think that it is sufficient. People are still using it, and you may find in markets also you may find this kind of device. This is a wearable orthotic device. And yeah, I have pasted a photo here of my device also. And people are also using linkage mechanism. So here the actuation is for the knee and foot simultaneously. So it is observed that the single axis joint gear and cam mechanisms are normally used at the knee joint of the assistive devices, and the knee and ankle movement are coupled through the linkage mechanisms. So, you considering this background, it is equally important to investigate the area of linkage mechanisms used in walking robots, since we are more interested in walking. So we need to also go and check, apart from these rehabilitation devices which are developed for the humans, we should also investigate the area of walking robots. We need to check how they are creating walk. So for that, I found the most common. You may find it in internet, Theo Jensen linkage mechanism, which is also known as wind beast. So the structure of this mechanism, see. So again, this is the lower leg or lower and upper leg combined. So it is a entire mechanism that is giving you the motion for entire lower limb. So again, this is Stephenson two leg mechanism. Again, you have a entire mechanism that is giving you the motion. Again, for aid bar also you have an entire mechanism that is giving you the motion. So in the start of this presentation, I made it clear that my focus will be entirely on knee region. So because I really found it interesting that how to give the motion which is rotation and sliding and rotation simultaneously to the knee joint. So for that I found that you can make use of 4 bar, 6 bar, 8 bar mechanism. However, you can make use of those mechanism at knee instead of going for the leg mechanism. So now it is our liberty to go with any of the trajectories we have. You can use ankle tear drop ankle trajectory, or you can also go with any of the natural and assumed trajectories you have, and you can make use of clinical data gait analysis data book, and you can get the trajectories from there. And instead, what you can do, you can do the motion analysis, and you make use of the motion capture camera and do experimentation and get trajectories and extract trajectories from there itself. So I'll tell you the way how to extract the trajectories using experimentation also, which we are following. I don't know whether other people are following, but which we are following. I'll try to disclose that here. So this is the teardrop trajectory which you can use. So see so many trajectories are taken experimentally, and later on an average trajectory you can make use of for designing a mechanism. So I think we are very much done with the background of the rehabilitation devices. Now we can proceed to doing the background, understanding the background of planar linkage synthesis method. So when we say planar, that means my focus will be only on 2D. So we'll not be touching upon 3D mechanisms. We'll only be covering 2D. And why it is so? The reason being, we are working in which plane? We are working in sagittal plane, where we are trying to cover only this trajectory, which is your flexion extension trajectory. So when I say that there are various techniques, such as graphical technique, analytical technique, and optimization based techniques. You can further classify them into, there is one technique which is also known as Burmester curve synthesis method. When you have 4 precision points or 5 precision points, you can make use of this methodology or synthesis technology. And you can also go with the geometrical design of the linkages, and the one which I like the most is the complex number method, and you can combine it with the optimization based methodologies. Another approach which is very complex and I do not like that approach is to make use of the Coupler curve equation. So Coupler curve, I'll just give you a brief introduction. I don't know you guys know or not. You might be knowing it, obviously. So yeah, this is the point, and this is a rigid body. So when this mechanism moves, it will generate a curve. So that curve is known as Coupler curve. So what we can do, we can make use of this equation. We can create this equation for this Coupler curve, and we can make use of this and do the synthesis. That is another method. But however, it requires many iterations and the complexity is huge. So 4-bar linkage synthesis of the closed form equations you can make use of for doing the analytical synthesis, but it should not be more than 5. And we use standard form of equation for that, and it cannot be solved easily for the 6 and 9 precision point. In that case, we need to apply a homotopy or different methods for solving it. And if we talk about the 6-bar linkage, I think these two things we have already covered, so we are not going to repeat it. So this we have already covered. For function generation, the number of precision points should not be more than 11. And when you increase the number of precision points, what happens? The complexity will definitely increase. Now, if you are doing the optimal linkage synthesis, then you should make sure that if you are doing optimization, you should have one objective. And when I'm saying you should have, when we are doing optimal linkage synthesis, by default, I am assuming that you will be making use of one algorithm. Algorithm to आपके पास है, ठीक है? So we are only interested in objective and constraint. Constraint as per your problem, objective as per your problem, and algorithm by default. I am considering that if you are applying optimization algorithm, you have one of the one or more algorithms you have for applying. Okay, so there are two important things that you should take care of. One is objective function, and the other one is constraint. So make use of two things and do your work, and you are good to go. Because algorithm, I think you have your algorithm and you can apply the algorithm to get them done, get your objective achieved. Now when I'm saying objective, there are many objectives which are readily available for you. Even I have used a Euclidean distance objective function, where suppose we have an objective, this is the trajectory which I want to track, and my mechanism is generating this trajectory. So what will happen? There are some points. Suppose there are 3 points only. So I'll measure the distance between these 2 points, and these 2 points. So I can make an objective. We know what is the distance formula: x1, x2, sorry, x1, y1, x2, x1 desired, y1 desired. Similarly, x2, y2, यहाँ पे आ जाएगा आपका x2 desired and y2 desired. And now you can easily apply the formula xi minus xid whole square plus yi minus yid whole square. Basically, we are applying some formula. So this is distance formula. So this is the distance d1 to d1 plus d2 plus d3. I want these distance to be minimized: d1, d2, and d3. So my objective could be sum should be minimized. Okay, so you can make objectives as per your choice, and if there are any constraints, you can put those constraints in there, and you can try to achieve your objective. So there are several readily available objective functions which you can use. One is tracking error, which I have given you an example. Orientation structural error, finite element based error function, circular proximity, transmission angle, or any other objective you are free to create. So you can formulate any objective and you can propose it if it is not available. Okay, so these are the things which you can do for applying the optimization algorithm. Apart from that, once you have such things, then the next thing is to apply the optimization algorithm. And I think I have already discussed this with you, that we are not going to apply any local optimization algorithm. Yes, we can make use of it, but in combination with global. So our choice will always be a global optimization algorithm. So in global, we have seen metaphor based, which is nature inspired algorithms, which are GA, PSO, DE, MFO, and many other optimization algorithms. However, what I like the most is, I'm not biased towards any Indian algorithm. However, this works best for me. TLBO, teaching learning based optimization algorithm. It has been proposed by Dr. Rao from I don't remember. I think NIT Surat. So, but this worked really well for me. So I have a bias towards this algorithm. I really like it. So in the all my research work, you will always find that I have applied TLBO. I have also applied different other algorithms. Even I am applying my algorithms also, but I always make use of this algorithm. Okay, so I really like it. So you can also try and search, and you can make use of this algorithm in your research also. Now we'll talk about the defects, because while you are doing the linkage synthesis and you are applying any optimal linkage synthesis methodology, in certain cases you will encounter some defects. So the best thing is to rectify those defects. Now the big question is how to rectify those defects. So in order to rectify the defects, what we can do is we can first of all identify the defects. So there are three kinds of defects which I have identified: circuit, branch, and order. So I call them as CBO defects: circuit, branch, and order defects. So when I say circuit, circuit ko we can easily explain in this way, that we have a 4-bar mechanism, and when you try to do the position analysis of any 4-bar mechanism, you will encounter a quadratic equation. And when I say quadratic equation, what are the number of roots of a quadratic equation? There are 2 roots. So corresponding to each root, you will get one 4-bar mechanism. So how many 4-bar mechanisms will be possible? Two different 4-bar mechanisms are possible. And corresponding to each 4-bar mechanism, you will have one trajectory or one coupler curve, and that coupler curve, you may call that coupler curve as one circuit. So suppose there are 3 design points: D1, D2, and D3. Now you have understood what are, if you have not understood, you can see the recording later on. If you have 3 design points and if you have 2 circuits, and when I say that our mechanism is capable of tracing all the design points considering one circuit or on one circuit, our mechanism is completely defect free. But in this case, we, as you can see here, this red one is circuit 1 and the other one is circuit 2. So one design position, which is D3, is lying on circuit 2 and the 2 positions are lying on circuit 1. So that makes the mechanism not useful for me, because it is not tracing this. So because what is the desirable thing? I want my mechanism to track the trajectory D1, D2, and D3 in one go, in one order. So if it is not following the order, we'll call that it is order defected. And if the design points are not lying or on the one circuit, we can call them the mechanism to be circuit defected. So in such case, what will happen? We have to dismantle the mechanism and we have to again assemble the mechanism at different location. So you will get you in order to reach to this point, and which is not feasible, because once you have designed the mechanism, applied it to some machine or anything, then you cannot dismantle them and again assemble them in order to achieve the third point, to reach to the third point. Okay, so it is always better to rectify these defects before you move on to the design. Then comes the branch defect. So whenever I'm saying branch always be present, it will be created on one circuit. So on this circuit, if we have one branch will be an indication of a toggle position, where your second diode or your coupler and follower makes collinearity. So where these two becomes collinear, a branch will be created, a toggle, that will be a toggle position. So sometimes branch is useful and sometimes it may not be useful. So it it hardly matters for us. However, circuit is very important, and we have to rectify these circuit defects during the synthesis process. So I think these are some of the procedures for rectifying the circuit defects. These can be eliminated through graphical optimal synthesis techniques. So Feynman's graphical procedure and Waldron's three circle diagram you can just have a look at in order to see whether you can remove the defects using these procedures or not. So you can make use of Russell and Soddy book in order to have a better understanding of Feynman's graphical procedure and Waldron three circle diagram in order to remove the circuit defects. However, what method I follow is simply identify. First of all, what is the first step? To identify whether the defect is present or not. So if defect is present, we need to rectify it. So what we will do, we will create a constraint in order to rectify that particular defect. So this is the technique which we are following. So it is observed that it can be avoided by identifying and applying the constraint for each cause of the defect. So we'll be following this methodology that will make things really simple. Okay. And the another method which I also found okay, it is handy, but sometimes it is, I mean, difficult because it involves maximum number of iterations. So here what happened, the on the Burmeister curve we need to identify which segment is giving you the circuit defect in, and once we have identified the segment, we can remove that segment and we are good to go. So it is not as easy as I have said. Okay, it involves a lot of mathematical and algebra work. Now okay, I think I have written this here also. So other method either removes the Burmeister segment which consists of the defects or provides a geometrical method model for eliminating the defect. Okay, and you can make use of geometric constraint programming in order to remove these defects or to rectify these defects. And I think now it's 10:12 and we have only covered introduction and background. So now this is the start of your synthesis. So if you have not kept a notepad and pen with you, it will be difficult because it is very simple. It is very simple. Just make use of notepad and pen, and whatever I am explaining here, just try to note it down. So we are now trying to synthesize a 4-bar mechanism for 2 precision points. So this is more of like a motion generation method. So we are making use of motion generation. So when I'm saying motion generation, that means what is the given information? Given information is the rigid body orientation, rigid body location and orientation. Okay. So here we have we need to, the problem, what is the problem? Problem is we need to design a 4-bar. Okay, graphical is very easy. So please be in sync with me. Design a 4-bar mechanism graphically for given rigid body location and orientation. So this is first position and this is second position. Now we need to design a 4-bar mechanism in such a way such that it starts from here and moves to here. Okay, and this is, you can assume it to be the coupler. Okay, now in order to synthesize a 4-bar mechanism graphically, what we need to do is, first step is to start from here and see your A1 has moved to this new location A2. So draw a line between them, draw a line between B1 and B2. So once you have drawn the lines between A1, A2, B1, B2, now you need to draw the perpendicular bisectors. Perpendicular bisector of A1, A2. So this is perpendicular bisector of B1, B2. Ultimately, you will get this pole. So this will be a pole, and on around this axis rotation is happening. As you can see that around this your rigid body is moving. The rotation is happening in this direction. So this is the pole around which your body is moving. So now we need to identify the pivots, which is the ground pivot and which one is the moving pivot. So moving pivots are also are already available here. Now we need to identify the ground pivots. So I'll just make a 4-bar structure here. So we need a mechanism like this. So A0, A1, B1 and B0. So now we are interested in locating A0 and B0 in order to complete a 4-bar mechanism. We are given with the two locations and orientations of the body A1, A2, B1, B2. Now we are interested in locating this. Since this is a perpendicular bisector and we have liberty to select our ground pivot anywhere on this location, anywhere of our choice. Suppose I have chosen it here. Suppose my A0 is here. This is my choice. Okay, this is not going to change. And on this, suppose if I chose it here, anywhere on this I can choose. This is B0. Now what I'll do, I'll just make use of different color and I can join it with this and I can join it with this. So this is the mechanism. Now my mechanism is this. So this is my first link. This is my second link. And this is my third link. And the ground to ground distance is my fourth link. So it is a cross 4-bar mechanism which I have created. So now considering this to be the information given to us, we can design a 4-bar mechanism graphically. So this is the graphical method, which is very simple. Yeah, anyone, any issues or any doubts, if you have, you can ask. No issues. Yeah, shall I proceed?
Excuse me, sir.
Yes.
Can we take that A0 and B0 anywhere or like this only? Is there any reason?
No. There's no reason. You can select any point of your choice.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Okay. So what is the first step? First step is distance between the two, A1, A2. Then distance between B1, B2. Draw perpendicular bisectors. You will get a pole. So once you are done with this, you will get a pole. Once you have found the pole, then anywhere on this perpendicular bisector, you can select the ground pivot. So this is my ground pivot here. Okay. So see how the rotation is happening. And then on this perpendicular bisector, there is another ground pivot around which your B1 is moving to B2. Okay. So this is the final, after doing the graphical synthesis, this is the final 4-bar mechanism which I have come up with. This is my link number 2, because we always say that ground is link number 1. This is link number 3. This is link number 4. See. So now you can see how it is moving. Okay. So I hope we are done with graphical linkage synthesis of motion generation for 2 precision points. Okay. Up till here, any issues in understanding anything, or shall I proceed? If there are no issues, we can proceed to doing the 3 precision position synthesis considering motion generation. Now earlier we have only 2 precision positions. Now we have 3 precision positions. So the given information is, the problem is given to you in the form of positions and orientations of the rigid links. So here positions are given for A1, A2 and A3. B1, B2, B3 is given to us. And what else is given? Orientations. The angular orientations are also given. Theta 1, theta 2, theta 3. So angular orientations and positions are given to us. Now I want to design a mechanism for 3 precision positions motion generation. So the best way to do it is to follow the same methodology which we have seen. Connect A1 to A2. Okay. So connect A1 to A2, A2 to A3. Now instead of simply drawing the perpendicular bisectors between A1, A2 and B1, B2 and get the intersection, what we will do here is we'll draw the intersection, we'll draw the perpendicular bisector of A1, A2 and A2, A3, and we'll get an intersection point. So that intersection point will be unique. Now we do not have liberty to select the ground pivot anywhere on the perpendicular bisector, because here we have an intersection point and we are limited to choosing only that point. Okay, so we'll do the same thing. We'll draw a1, a2, a2, a3 distance, draw perpendicular bisectors. You will get a pivot. Now here we have no choice. Please remember, now we have no choice. There is only one point. This is the only point, unique point around which the motion is happening. So this is your first ground pivot. This is your first pivot, ground pivot, or you can say this is your a0. Now we have no limit, no choice. Now we'll do the same thing for b1, b2. Draw the perpendicular bisector b1 between b1 and b2, between b2 and b3. Okay, so here it comes. Here it comes. So we have two pivots, green pivot and the blue pivot, and both these pivots are the ground pivots. Now we can join them with our lines. This is our a0 and this is our b0. Join them, and this is the 4 bar which we are interested in getting. So now you can see the 4 bar can move to these locations. Okay, I hope you have understood the method of graphical synthesis for motion generation. Mind it, it is not path generation. Both these methods are motion generation. Okay, so in graphical I have covered only motion generation, not path generation. So I think that you guys are comfortable understanding the graphical motion synthesis, since the topic is very vast and I tried to skip many things. However, I also tried to cover up many things, but yeah, we cannot cover the entire thing in 2 hour lecture, but I'll try my best to show all my work. Okay, so right now it's 10:22. I think I need a 2 to 3 minute of break, and then we'll start with analytical synthesis of 4 bar linkage for 2 precision points. So if there are no issues, can I have a break for 3 minutes? Right now it is 10:22. We'll meet at 10:25 if everything is fine. Dr. Amit, if you are listening, is it fine? Nobody is responding, so I assume that it is fine. Okay, so I'll meet you guys in 3 minutes. So we'll have a 3 minute break and then we'll join again. I'll join again.
Okay.
So 10:25 I'll meet you again.
Okay.
Hello.
அசோக் mail அனுப்பிச்சு விடுங்க அசோக்.
Hello, Dr. Ramanpreet. Hello, Dr. Ramanpreet sir. Sir, you are not audible. You can you can rejoin.
So actually the thing is I took a break for 3 minutes and I informed all the participants.
Okay, sir. Fine.
10:25. 1 minute is 1 minute. After 1 minute I'll join.
Yeah. Yes.
I think everyone is online now. Am I audible properly?
Yes, sir.
Yes,
You
sir.
are audible.
And my screen is also visible, right?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So currently we are done with the introduction, background, graphical synthesis, and now we are going to start analytic. Now I'm pretty sure that we are not going to cover all the whatever I have told you in the presentation slide, in the lecture outline slide. We cannot cover everything because it is taking too much of time. So we have half an hour and I'll try to give you as much information as I can. Analytical synthesis we are now going to study, but before analytical synthesis I'll show you one of the, because since if we do not talk about the orthotic device and how to create it, it will be very difficult for you. Now you have understood the graphical method, right? So I'll skip the analytical synthesis. As of now, I'm skipping analytical synthesis and I'll show you how to create a orthotic device. As I have created, I'll show you just one orthotic device, and then I'll again come back to analytical synthesis methodology. Now, because you guys are aware of synthesis, so I'm moving on to the other slides. Okay, so here we are going to talk about this. I'll just show you. Yeah. So now here we are going to talk about the creation of such device. Okay. So now you have understood how to do the analysis, or sorry, you have understood how to do the graphical synthesis. So using that basic methodology of graphical synthesis, you can also create any orthotic device. Okay, but this statement is very, I mean, vague statement, because it is, I mean, not that possible. But yes, you can give it a try. Number of iterations would be more, but you can come up with such a device. Yeah, this is a 4-bar mechanism, which is a crank rocker linkage. As you can see, this is your link number 1, link number 2, link number 3, link number 4. So this is your link number 4, entire link. This is link number 1, this is link number 3, and this is link number 2. So you can also create such a mechanism using the methodology which I have discussed with you. Okay, now I'll show you the method of creation. Okay, so in this work, what we have done, we tried to remove all the defects, and we have come up with the necessary and reduced number of the constraints for the defect elimination, and we have done optimal synthesis. So while we are doing optimal synthesis, instead of doing all the blah blah work, we have not done anything like that. What we have done, we have simply done the position analysis. So position analysis you can find in any book, any simple book, because we always try to keep things simple. So do the position analysis. When you are doing the position analysis, what you will be needing, you will be needing the position of this point, and you can simply create the position like this. Is ultimately you will be starting with some reference point. This is some reference frame. You have to move on to the starting point or the ground pivot. So this is your first vector. So, okay, and I have mark this position to be O2x, then R2 cos of theta 2, which is this, then L cos of theta 3 plus beta. Now we have the given some of the variables which are given to us, and some of the variables which are not given to us. So the given variables are you can say we have to assume what is the theta 2 going to be. Since I have mentioned that we are going to use a crank rocker mechanism, that means we have an assumption that our crank is going to move from 0 degrees to 360 degrees. So we have to design such a mechanism which is capable, in which either any one of the link is capable of making such a rotation. So do the position analysis, find the x and y coordinates, px and py, and what is given to you. Since we are interested in getting a trajectory, so we should have some desired points, pxd and pyd, which is the desired coordinates. So if you have done the experimentation, and if you know how the knee trajectory is, and if you have found the knee trajectory, then that trajectory will be considered as your desired trajectory. Now you can make use of that desired trajectory, and you can do the position analysis to get the obtained trajectory. So this will be your px py will be your obtained trajectory. Now the big question is, what is the value of R2, L, and all the other variables. So these are the things which we do not know. So in such case, what will happen? We'll create an objective function. So my objective function will be px. My objective function will be the distance function. कि मेरे पास I have two trajectories like this. This is these two trajectories I have, and I want to minimize the sum of this distance d1 plus d2 plus d3. So what I will do, I'll create the function for this trajectory, which is this px and py I have now, and these are the points which are already given to me, the pxd, pyd, pxd, pyd, pxd, pyd. These are the points which are given to me already. So I'll use the distance formula which I have written over here. So this is the distance formula, and then ultimately I'll sum them up. Okay, the sum of that distance, if it is equal to 0, it indicates that the given trajectory and the obtained trajectory are overlapping to one another. If the distance is 0, if the distance is not 0, it will reflect such distance here. Okay, so this is the objective, and in order to achieve that, we have done the position analysis, which is px and py. Okay, and in px and py there are some variables like r1, r2, r3, r4. These are the length of the mechanism, and we have L, which is the this part. Okay, and theta 1, which is the constant angle or the orientation, theta 1. Then the starting position or the of the ground pivot, and the movement of your crank from the first point to the nth precision point, nth precision point. So and apart from that, the theta, which is the constant angle again here. So these are the constants which we do not know, and we want to design the mechanism which has such values. Okay, so we have assumed them to be the design variables, and these are subjected to some of the constraints, like as we have said that we are interested in getting a crank rocker mechanism, because if any one link is capable of making a full rotation, it will not hamper the mechanism's motion or range of motion. So that's why we have chosen crank rocker mechanism. You can choose any other mechanism also. So for that, there is a well-established crank rocker constraint or the condition. So we have made use of that condition, and we have created a constraint. So this is a Grashof crank rocker constraint. And then we also studied that when you are doing the synthesis, you should take care of the circuit defect and the order defect. Order defect, you might have understood that you have to follow a proper sequence. If the sequence is not followed, or order defect is present. If sequence is followed, order defect is rectified. And circuit ke liye, you have some design points, they should lie on one circuit. In that case, there is no circuit defect. So in order to remove that, what we can do, we can make use of the transmission angle constraint. Either it should increase or it should decrease. So you have to apply a constraint, either make them positive or either make them negative. So apply that constraint in order to remove the circuit defect. Now, since I'm going a little bit fast now, so to get into the details of whatever I have said, you can search, you can go to my Google Scholar profile, and you can search for a loop by loop defect rectification procedure. So this paper, when you search loop by loop, in that paper, you will find all the details of the circuit branch and order defects in depth. Okay, and if you want to check this paper, so you can just type in this title in the Google, and the first paper that will come, that will be this paper, defect free optimal synthesis of crank rocker linkage. So you can go into the details of that paper as well. So we have a design variable, we have the objective function, we have the constraints, everything are with us. Now what is left? We are left with only one thing, which is optimization algorithm. So I have already told you that there is a bias. Whenever I am applying optimization algorithm, I always start with TLBO. So I started with TLBO. Again, I don't think that I can explain all these things, optimization algorithm here, because we are already running out of time. 25 minutes are left. So these are some of the notations which this you can find in my paper, the same paper which I have quoted, defect free optimal synthesis. So notations are there, and this is the optimization flow chart. So in this fashion, we are applying the optimization algorithm, and to the TLBO, we have modified the TLBO this by for reducing the computational effort. Since you are working on a non-linear optimization problem, So in that case, what will happen? It will take a huge amount of computational effort. So in order to reduce that, what we will do, we'll put a refinement scheme for TLBO. So what it does, it will check all the solutions, or it will check all the constraints before moving further. So it will check these constraints and the solutions which are violating them. It will remove those solutions and update the new solutions, and then it will move further. So this is the only part which we have edited in the TLBO algorithm, just to reduce the computational effort, and we found that it worked absolutely fine. So you can make use of it. And we found that when you have applied the optimization algorithm, we in this work we have applied PSO, GA, and TLBO. So as you can check from the figures, that TLBO is converging very fast in comparison with GA and PSO, and also the optimization function values are less for TLBO in comparison with the other algorithms. And the same goes for the average function values also. So average maybe this is converging faster in comparison with the others. So that's why we always have a bias towards this algorithm, because we always get good values. So this is the finally, after doing all that work, this is the result that we got. This is the 4-bar mechanism that we have obtained. And as now you can easily visualize what I was trying to convey earlier. This blue trajectory is the generated trajectory. So this mechanism which we have designed, when I'm saying that I have designed or synthesized a mechanism, that means that I found what should be the value of R2, what should be the value of R3, what should be the value of R4 and R1, and what should be the value of theta1. So these values I have found. Okay, so considering these values, when I tried to generate a coupler curve, I found that the shape of that coupler curve is like this, and what is desired is the red one. So, and it is exactly similar to the one which I desire. So this way, when we tried to validate it, or through simulation, we found that it is tracking all the trajectories and there is no defect also. And these are the different positions, orientations of the mechanism at different positions. The first position is this is third position, and this is 8th position, and this is 14th position. So it has covered all the points. Okay, so validation part. Okay. Okay. So this is the final mechanism which we have come up with, and this is the orthotic device. So when you do the shape synthesis and all, you can create a shape and you can embed a mechanism what you have designed to that orthotic device. And when we tried to check whether it is working or not, so we wore that mechanism, and when the person walked, it was providing support to the knee. So that was the work that I wanted to show it to you. And if you want to have a deep insight into this, you can go and check this paper, Crank Rocker Linkage Synthesis using Nature Inspired Algorithm, Singh and Chaudhary. So now I think we can move on again to the analytical synthesis methodology, and we'll cover that up. I hope we are in right pace and everybody is in sync with me. So shall we start analytical synthesis now? Okay. So is there any limitation that nobody is should respond during the presentation? Is there any limitation? I just wanted to make sure that you guys are listening.
Yeah, dear participants, if you have any question, please, you can ask in between. There is no.
Yeah, anyone can respond. If you guys are comfortable, we can proceed with the analytical synthesis of 4-bar. Shall we start the analytical?
Yes, sir. Please, we have 15 to 20 minutes, so keep in mind this.
Okay. So, okay, so now I'll try to wind up in 15-20 minutes. I'll try to wind up in 15 minutes, because entire presentation I cannot cover. So analytical synthesis of 4-bar linkage for 2 or 3 precision points. So here we have moving plane. This is when I'm using pi, this is the first plane, and this is the second plane, same plane in the second position. So one indicates first position, two indicates second position. So again, the methodology which I have discussed with you for the graphical synthesis is followed here. See, this point is moved to this point. So distance has been drawn the perpendicular bisector. Now we have the liberty to choose the ground pivot anywhere on this point. So the same work they have done. And similar methodology has been followed for 2 and 3. Okay. So when I'm saying ground pivot, so we'll always be referring to M, because it is in German, Mittelpunkt means center point, which is grounded. So whenever we are referring to ground point, we'll use M. And whenever we are referring to moving point, we'll use K, Kreuzpunkt. So the planar linkage can be modeled easily using the complex vector formulation. So here we have a figure where we have one rigid body which is oriented at an angle of θ1, and it has later on moved to another point. So we have to apply a rotational operator here. So in that rotational operator, we need to check see this is more clear diagram. So here we can see that we can name the rigid bar as A and Bj. This is the rigid bar, and the vector, we can call that vector to be zk. Okay. So at kth position or at the jth position, this is the orientation. Suppose we want to represent the rotation, we have to apply the rotational operator, and that can be written in this fashion. Zk is the vector, where this zk, bold one is the vector, and this is scalar, and this is the rotational operator which we have applied. And it is a well-established fact that e raised to the power iota theta, using the Euler's identity, we can write zk in this fashion. So when we apply the rotational operator, it indicates that your rigid body has moved from its initial position to the new position after rotation, rotation of θ1. So whenever we need to rotate the body, we apply the rotational operator. Now, whenever we do synthesis, we majorly use the combination of vector pairs, which we call dyads. So here we have a dyad. This is your first rigid body, this is your second rigid body, and these two vector pairs will be your left vector pair or left dyad, and this will be your right vector pair or right dyad. So W and Z is your left dyad, W star and Z star is your right dyad. And once we are done with the finding W and Z, these vectors we are done, then we can make use of the vector addition to find and to determine what is A naught B naught vector and what is A B vector. So whenever the problem is given to you, the points will always be mentioned. These points, P1 to Pj, what are the points? These will be given in the problem to you. This is nothing but the desired trajectory. So the desired trajectory is always given to you. So we have a reference frame, and with that reference frame, we know what is the position and orientation or what are the coordinates of that point. So these are represented by R1 and Rj. So if we know R1 and Rj, we can easily determine what is the distance between them using the vector addition method. So now we can write R1 plus delta j is equal to Rj, or we can simply say that delta j is equal to Rj minus R1. So this we can follow. Now what we are doing here is, now instead of considering the entire 4-bar, we do synthesis in steps. First we do synthesis of left dyad, and then we move on to synthesizing right dyad. So we have now a left dyad here, and it has moved from its initial position to an angle beta 2, and later on from its initial position to an angle beta 3. And same situation goes for Z. Same situation goes for Z. So here, this is the initial configuration. What we'll do, we'll draw a line parallel to this. So these two lines are parallel, and from this initial position, it has moved to alpha 2, and from this initial position, it has moved to alpha 3. So these are the two. For 3 precision point, these are the notations. When I'm referring to alpha, that means I am referring to Z orientation, Z rotation. And when I'm referring to beta, that means I'm referring to W rotation. Now displacement vector, I have already discussed how to determine delta 2, delta 3. I have already explained, and since it is not visible over here, so you can just move on to the previous slides. I have written it here. Okay. Then we'll start with the 2-point synthesis. The basic method for synthesizing a mechanism is now some things are given to you and some things are to be obtained. So here what is given to you is the alpha. Since we are doing the motion synthesis, so alpha has to be given to you. Alpha means the rigid body orientation and position. So R1 and R2 indicates the positions of R1 and R2, and suppose A1, so position of A1 is given to you, and the angle of orientation is also given to you. How much angle it has moved from here to this will be given to you. Okay, how much it has moved. So this alpha will be given to you, not this alpha, not this alpha. Suppose this is A2, this is A1. So moving from A1 to A2, how much it has oriented, how much it has rotated, that will be given to you in the form of alpha, and the location is also given. A1 and A2 is always given to you. Okay, so these are prescribed values, and every thing else apart from this we need to find out. Since we are working in the form of dyads, so to find the unknown, starting position of the vector dyad is WZ. So now we have understood what is the rotational operator. So we are starting from the first point. And we are heading towards the last point, PJ. Okay, so this is our W vector, this is Z vector, and this is delta Z vector. Okay, and now the arrows will make everything clear that it is forming a loop. While moving from P1 to P2, it is making a loop. So we have to do the vector addition. So first of all, we'll write this vector. So this vector has rotated by an angle of beta from its initial position. So we'll write it as W vector into rotational operator, which is e to the power iota beta j. Similarly, we'll write it for Z, which will be Z vector into e to the power iota alpha j. So once we are done with these two things, we need to check what is the displacement vector. This is displacement vector. However, you can see that now we are moving in this direction, which is negative to this, opposite direction. So we have to put a negative sign now, negative of displacement vector. Now again, we are moving in opposite direction. So negative of this, now again negative of this. So it is a closed loop. So that is why it is equal to 0. Now we can simplify this. When you simplify this, you can take W vector to be common and you will get this. This is the final equation. And now you can put the value of J to be 2 for 2 precision points, 3 for 3 precision points, and N for N precision points. And delta J is already given to you. So now we have a generalized equation. Suppose my J is equal to 2. We'll get only this vector equation. And if you are interested in getting a scalar equation, so in terms of this, W vector is nothing but Wx and Wy, and Z vector is Zx and Zy, and this delta vector is already given to you in the problem. And apart from this, and this, these are to be found out. And beta 2 is also not known. Okay, because we are interested in getting the value for beta 2. Everything else apart from these two things we need to find out. So beta 2 is not given to you, so beta 2 is to be found out. So we have a one vector equation. So when you convert it to the scalar equation, you will get two scalar equations in x and y, or in imaginary and what you can say, the real coordinates. In real and imaginary coordinates, you will get two equations, two scalar equations. So two equations, and how many variables? 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 variables. So how many are left? 3 variables. So that means 3 variables are left. We cannot find them. So in order to find the solution, we have 3 infinity of choices. Okay. So we have 2 equations and 5 unknowns. That means we have to assume 3 variables, and we have infinite choices for them. And those 3 variables might be these variables, or might be W and beta 2. In that case, we can write down the equation for Z. Okay. So, and the similar methodology we can follow for W star and Z star. Once we are done finding the W star, Z star, then we can easily do vector addition, and we can find what is the length between AB and A naught B naught by simply doing the vector addition. So Z minus Z star will give you, simply by vector addition we are doing it. Okay, so you can make use of the arrows here and you can find what is your AB and A naught B naught. Once you are done with this, this is a general slide for motion generation. Suppose you increase the value of J to J3, in that case what will happen, the number of scalar equation will increase to 4 because there will be 2 loops, and 2 loops means 2 vector equations. 2 vector equations means into 2, 4 equations which are scalar. So how many variables you will have? You will have 6 variables. 5 to pehle hi the, and then one more variable which has been added is beta 3. So how many number of choices are there now? Now we have only 2 choices. Okay, because number of 2 infinite choices, because the number of equations have increased. So similarly, if you increase J equal to 4 and J equal to 5, the equations will be, number of equations will be increasing and number of free choices will be decreasing. So the same methodology is to be followed for 3-point synthesis as well. However, when you apply the same closed loop equation, you will get 2 scalar equations, 2 vector equations. These are 2 vector equations for left diode, and these are the 2 scalar equations for right diode. And when you apply the Cramer's rule, you can find W and you can find Z. And similarly, you can do the same thing for finding W star and Z star or W dash or Z dash, and you can apply it to your problem. And once you have found all the lengths, then you can find the points also. Then you can find the point A naught. What are the points? This is your point A naught, this is point A, and likewise you can find any of the points. B is the point for the right one, B naught. So I'll just show you this example and then we'll wind up this presentation. So analytical synthesis of a 4-bar linkage for 3 precision points. So suppose this is the thing which is given to you. R1 is given to you, R2 is given to you, and R3 is given to you. So we are taking an example of 3 precision points. So that means the distance between R1 and R2 will be delta 2, R1 and R3 will be delta 3. So we have found what is delta 2, what is delta 3, and this is given to you. This is given information since I taught you the motion generation. So consider it this to be given for motion generation. Okay, not, these are not randomly selected values. Randomly selected are this. Okay. So here we have to randomly select 2 values which are beta 2 and beta 3. We have randomly selected for one diode, and sigma 1, sigma 2 and sigma 3 for the right diode. So these are the counterpart of beta for the right diodes, only notation is different. So once you apply these formulas which we have obtained here, W and Z, when you apply this, you will get Wx and Ws, Zx and Zy, and then you can easily locate where is your point A, point A naught, point B naught. All these things you can easily find out. Then you can do the analysis to check whether the point you are claiming it is tracing or not. Since this is your first point, this is your second point, and this is your third point. When you put all these values, you will get a 4-bar mechanism like this. This is a 4-bar mechanism, and this is the coupler link. And when you give motion to it, it will trace the 3 points precisely. So this is the desired trajectory and generated trajectory. Like I said, that we are only interested in the precision points, not the trajectory in between them. So it is completely tracking this using the methodology which I have discussed. Now, I think we'll stop here. If you guys have any doubt, you can ask. Else, now still 5 minutes are there, but there is no point in taking any other topic because I think it requires more time. So we'll stop here instead of moving on to the other slides. We'll stop here. We'll have to stop here. Okay, thank you for listening to me. If you guys have any doubts or any issues, you can ask me. I think Dr. Amit, we can stop here because for any other topic, we'll be needing more time and we do not have time. Even I have to rush.
Yeah, completely agree, Dr. Ramanpreet. Dear audience, sir has covered a great mathematical explanation of the soft mechanism. And if you have any query, it is the right time to ask. You can speak or you can type your questions in chat box also. Sir, there is a question in chat box.
Yeah. Can you please read it?
Yeah. How to convert the graphical to optimal synthesis?
Yeah. So for that, you need to have a mathematical approximation that I have not covered here. So for that, there is a book by McCarthy, J. McCarthy. You can just go through that book and you will have a good idea about how to convert that into a mathematical model. Once you have a mathematical model, then you can create your objective and combine it with optimization. Then once you have a mathematical model, you can easily convert it to optimal problem. But first, to get there, you have to have a mathematical model. So for that, you can read that book.
Any other questions from the audience? Yeah. He's asking book name.
So for that, you have to give me 2 minutes of time. Let me have just give me a time. Give me 2 minutes of time. Just take it. Yeah, the name is Geometric Design of Linkages. Geometric Design of Linkages, and it is published by Springer. And there are two authors, J. Michael McCarthy and Jim Song So. Yeah. Any other question?
We can take one more question, sir.
Yeah.
The question is there any other method apart from the optimization technique to obtain the required joint angles?
Yes, we have discussed three methods, right, for synthesis. But if I think the question is more inclined towards analysis. So suppose you are interested in getting angles of joints from the trajectory, you can do the inverse kinematics. Okay, I'll show it to you an example. Just give me a second. That part actually I have to cover, but the time constraint is there. I don't know why it is not moving. Okay, but you if it is not moving, no worries. What you can do is you can do the inverse kinematics. Yeah, it's now moving, working. So you can create a mathematical model. So this is the thing. Suppose you are given with this. Suppose this is the trajectory which is given to you. Okay, so considering this to be the given trajectory, you can find these angles. I hope I have understood the question correctly. You can determine these angles by doing the inverse kinematics, and you can have a mathematical model for that. And if you want to have all these mathematical formulations, you can go to my Google Scholar profile and read these papers. This is the mathematical model for the different trajectories for the lower limb, stance phase and swing phase. Everything is there. So you can just check this paper and you will be good to go.
So we all understand that in this short time, it's not possible to, sir, to because your questions are little bit mathematical. So it's not possible to answer in detail. But of course, you can contact him anytime. He is Dr. Ramanpreet Singh in Manipal University, Jaipur. And sir, you can also type your email ID so that audience can connect to you later.
Yeah, I think in this slide, if my screen is shared, all information is there.
Yeah. Yes. So, dear audience, if this slide is visible to you, then email ID is also mentioned with mobile number, and you can take help anytime.
Yeah, my personal website is also there. You can just have a look there if you want to see my current works and everything.